Okay, so we're gonna go in through the main entrance here, even though it's actually not a door we use all that much. I started to say welcome while I was still outside, but it was simply too windy. My hair was flying all over the place and I couldn't hear my own voice for the wind, so I hope this is better. Anyway, welcome to this little tour of my house. There was a viewer who suggested that I do a tour of my house, and I thought, well, why not? When I was a teacher, we made a distinction between what was personal and what was private. So I hope I'm going to be able to strike the balance between that and only be personal here. At least that's my attempt. So this is the entrance. As I said, it was the main door, and we usually actually don't use that door because it's kind of reserved for guests. That's a typical Danish thing, that there are often two doors in a house, and typically the people who live in the house mostly use the back door, but you are a guest, so I thought it was proper to use that. Actually, maybe I should turn on the light. Over here is my daughter's room. I don't think I'm gonna show you that today because she hasn't actually allowed me. I haven't asked, but also it's pretty messy. This chest, by the way, I'm not sure if you can see it over here, but it's from 1768. I'm not actually sure what it's from, apart from the fact that it's from Denmark, but I like old things, as you'll see. Back when I started buying furniture, I really preferred old furniture, even though it's not always practical. And it's also usually quite heavy. Here too, an old dresser that I painted white some years ago, and I've had it since I was 18. Let's head into the living room. So this is the living and dining room area. Here there's a view of the garden, and also it's quite common for a lot of Scandinavian households to have sort of the dining area and the living room area in one room. Here you can see the terrace outside, or part of it, and that chair over there is where I do most of my reading, and also, as of late, my knitting. This is the living room part of the room, where our really old TV is placed over there in the corner in order not to attract too much attention. And here's another old piece of furniture, by the way. It's probably the heaviest piece of furniture that we have. For some reason, it takes 4 grown men to carry it upstairs and downstairs and into rooms. It's ridiculous. We're probably going to throw it out the day we leave this house, but for now, I like the look of it, if not the weight. You'll notice perhaps these ventilation things here and there, and that's because it's a wooden house and it has these air shafts here and there, which means it's an allergy-friendly house. It's part of the system that came with the house, and it's a Swedish house. I talked about why we live in a Swedish house in a previous video, so I'm not going to get into that here. It also has a bit of heating in the floors, not so it gets hot, but so that we don't have any radiators. Just to dwell briefly on these candlesticks, certain items or certain things that I own used to be very important to me. These have gone from being very unimportant to being important to being neither. And I think that's kind of the journey that I've been on with some of my things. I got them as a present when I graduated from Danish high school from my parents. When I graduated, I looked quite punk-like. And I was 19, couldn't care less about a pair of silver candlesticks. Then 10 years went by, and by then I did live in my own place, and I began to really like those candlesticks. Now, years later, I don't notice them all that much anymore. I don't know if that's normal, if some of you maybe feel the same way about some of your things, that after a while you don't really see them. I've just bought fewer and fewer items over the years. These days I buy nothing, no sort of decorations. What I do is I throw stuff out. I'm not going to throw these out, obviously, but there will come a day when I will probably no longer have much of what I have in this house. When it comes to this little arrangement here, the two birds on the top shelf are from Royal Copenhagen, and they were my parents. I don't think I would ever buy anything like that, but I did inherit a few pieces. There's an angel, and there's an amethyst, and there's a silver box. That's one of the few possessions that my partner brought with him when we moved in together. This mirror we bought in Sweden years ago. I might go for something simpler today. Surprisingly, my partner also really prefers old things, so this one caught our eye. And I've always had a thing with angels. They're kind of kitschy, but I love them. This table we bought in Sweden as well, and it costs next to nothing. And you can see from the sofas that we're not really into Danish design. In fact, a lot of Danes are not necessarily into Danish design. This old half-moon table belonged to my mom, and also the porcelain pot or whatever it is on top. Here's another old table, a lamp that I inherited from my parents, a photo of us from Thailand, and that little wooden elephant there is a memento from the Serengeti. We visited Tanzania a few years ago. It was probably one of the most memorable trips I've ever been on, not least seeing all the elephants and, well, all the animals on the Serengeti. It was amazing. So this is the kitchen. All the elements that you see here are from IKEA as well, so in that way we're quite typical. But we were told back then that the most expensive kitchen elements are actually produced in the same factory. It's just that I sat and drew the map of the kitchen and put in the little elements, which means that IKEA saved time and we saved money. There's a cupboard door on the fridge so that it sort of blends seamlessly in with the rest of the kitchen. I quite love my porcelain sink. It sort of adds to the old-fashioned look. Initially there was no window at the end there. It's not part of the ground floor plan, but I insisted on it and I'm really glad that we put it in. I have a view of the trees. When I cook, I also look out into the garden, which I appreciate. The lamps that we have are mostly old lamps made of what we call poor man's silver. So they're not really silver, they're probably some kind of iron or metal here as well. And out here is the back door. Nothing to write home about in this room. It's just a very practical room where we leave all our shoes and do the laundry, etc. Here we have most of my books, or maybe 2/3 of them anyway. And over here is where I have some of my other books. At the bottom there, you've got books that are unread so far, then slightly older books, and then gardening books. And what do you know? Who's sitting there on the windowsill, begging to be let in? If you'll excuse me for a few minutes. So this is the guest bathroom, or my daughter's bathroom. The mirror is old and was also bought in some kind of vintage shop. I forget if we bought this on an island called Langeland or in Copenhagen, one of the two, because the other one is upstairs. The sink is a porcelain sink. The brand is called Old England. And the black and white tile floor is inspired by old seaside hotels. Okay, let's go upstairs. More IKEA. You can see the balcony. It's very windy. The painting that you see there also belonged to my parents. It was painted on driftwood. Another old cupboard that I painted white some years ago, and another old chest that used to be filled with dressing up clothes for my kids. I don't even know what's in there now. Here we have an old bookcase that's full of children's books, and I really don't remember the last time anyone looked at them, so probably we need to do some decluttering one of these days. But I have a hard time bringing myself to throw them out. I just want to dwell briefly on this Danish item here. In Danish it's called sætterkasse. It was also my mom's. I probably wouldn't have dreamed ever of getting one of those things, but it does actually serve a purpose in the sense that it's not only decorative, but holds a lot of little items that I've bought over the years, and of course especially that my mom bought. For instance, here's a small Buddha that I bought in Thailand, and here's I think a Shiva, or no, it's a Vishnu that I bought in India, and Mozart that my mom bought in Vienna when I was there with her many years ago. I think this is from London. This is a yeoman, that watches the tower or guards the tower. Salz und Mehl. I bought these from my mom in Heidelberg many years ago. Our little walk-in closet that I've shown in more detail in a video about decluttering. So this is just very briefly. It was actually meant to be the ceiling part of the entrance. But then at the last minute they told us that, hey, you can actually get a little walk-in closet if we cut off the ceiling instead. And we thought that was a jolly good idea, because who doesn't need more storage for their stuff? So let's just take a brief look at the bedroom. A very simple bedroom, nothing fancy about it. What I like best about this bedroom is that I have a view of the trees. This is essentially the view I have when I wake up, this time of year anyway. That little painting there, by the way, was painted by my daughter for my birthday last year. These are the two pictures I chose to look at when I wake up, in addition to the window and the trees outside. And over here is a poster by Renoir. And next to my bed, a reading light, of course, a few books, and lavender oil, and pictures of my daughters. 16 point something degrees in here right now. I prefer to sleep in a really chilly room. And this is the bathroom. This is the old mirror that I mentioned. I think we bought this one in Copenhagen in a vintage shop. And I think they're both from France. This is also an old England porcelain sink. And this is an old piece of bathroom furniture as well. Here we chose to put in a bathtub. Not that we use it very much, but it just has that old seaside hotel vibe to it, and there is the option of taking a really warm bath in the winter. And the sign above the bathtub there is just in case anyone forgot what the room is for. This handy contraption is something that we looked for a really long time. It's very useful for drying your towels. And over here is another old cupboard that we bought for storing the towels. This is my office right here. If you've seen my video about the word hygge, you've already seen this wallpaper before, and you've heard me mention that I should probably get it redone. This was not actually the wallpaper that I wanted for my office, but it was the wallpaper that I had this room done when my youngest daughter was quite small, and she loved it, of course. Very sort of pink and flowery. It's not really my thing right now, but you know, you need to get around to doing these things, and I've kind of gotten used to it, to be honest. This chair used to belong to my mom, so even though it's very low, I just can't bring myself to get rid of it. And I don't really like the color of burgundy all that much, but I can't bring myself to get it reupholstered either. Here are some of my other books. That bookshelf there on the right is full of books on literature, some of my books in French. This bookshelf here has some of the books that I intend to give away, books on art, books on spiritual development, meditation, the Tao, or the Tao, I should say. Books by people like Eckhart Tolle, Wayne Dyer, Brené Brown, Thich Nhat Hanh. And here's my high school diploma. And this is where I usually write and edit my videos and basically just work. It's one of those desks that you can actually push up and down, which is supposed to be really good for you. I've gotten a bit lazy with that, so I usually just sit. This wardrobe here is also quite old, probably, I don't know, 150 years old, something like that. And I distinctly remember my mom and I carrying it up the stairs back when I bought it. I think I was about 20. So it's actually not as heavy as the one downstairs, even though it's half a meter taller. It's full of all sorts of stuff, so I'm not going to share that with you. Just a small thing I want to share. This is a little sculpture by the Danish artist Jens Galschiøt, whom I worked for a while back. I made some teaching materials for one of his huge sculptures called Fundamentalism, which is just awesome. And this is a little sculpture of Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel, that he gave me for Christmas that year, and I really love it. I have it sitting on my desk. Over there on the windowsill is my statue of Shiva that I bought in India many years ago. Skal du igen? I remember reading somewhere that during the first half of your life you accumulate things, and in the second half of your life you tend to get rid of things. And I've definitely hit the second half of my life. I'm not very good at getting rid of things. I've gotten better, but I have to say my partner's really good at getting rid of my things, and I want to be in control of it myself. But when we first moved in, I think we'd lived here for less than 6 months. We had a break-in, and it was when, I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but there was no hedge. There was nothing in the garden. There was no garden. It was basically just a plot of land with dirt. So we hadn't really set up the garden yet, so anybody could just walk in, and it was very dark. The street lamps are far away. The neighbors, well, they hadn't even built all their houses yet, so we were an easy target. And we were gone for a weekend. When we came home, all my mom's jewelry had been stolen. I stupidly had it kept in the top drawer of the dresser that's in the entrance, almost like a welcome greeting. They also stole money from my daughter's piggy bank, can you believe it? And some other sort of electronics that didn't matter so much. But I was heartbroken about my mom's jewelry, of course. I didn't even get the full coverage from the insurance. But when I did, I decided, I'm not going to be able to recover my mom's jewelry. So I got a laser operation on my eyes, because I've been wearing glasses and contact lenses forever at that point. So, and that was very useful. For at least 10 years, I had 20/20 vision for the first time since I was a child. I can highly recommend that, by the way. I'm now a little more farsighted. Back then I was nearsighted, so I do use reading glasses, but it's still pretty okay. But what it taught me was that the more stuff you own, the more afraid you are of being robbed. So nowadays, apart from our computers and our phones and a little bit of jewelry, but very inexpensive jewelry, we don't really own stuff that you can see from outside that would prompt anybody to break in. And of course, also we have an alarm, or we got an alarm back then. The reason why I call this a Danish-Swedish house is that we're Danish. Actually, I'm part Swedish as well, and my partner is part Norwegian, but the house is Swedish. So thank you so much for spending time with me looking around my house. If there's anything you'd like to know, or anything you want to comment on, ask, feel free, and I'll try to answer as best I can. Bye for now.